Shalom. Before I begin, I want to give our praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushua, Ba'ashem Chakwadash, the honor to the apostles, all the great millstone, and shalom to the I Petitioners Word, Dr. Four Corners, and true sincerity. I'm back with another lesson. Through the Spirit, Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushua, Lord willing to be edifying unto the elect of Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushua. Alright, the topic of this lesson, well, before I get into the topic, the true name of God is Yahweh, which means He is or He exists. The true name of His Son is Yahweh Shai, which means He saves or He delivers. Okay. Alright. And the Lord has sent His prophets to all the four corners of the earth to tell the so-called black slides and the Native Americans to repent, for the kingdom of heaven, is at hand. Okay. Living in a great time. Shit is about to get real ugly. More ugly than it is now. Alright. But, with that being the intro, I wanted to get into how, I was thinking about that precept, alright, how, you brothers know how they won't be able to tell, or they'll be able to tell that we are, alright, of the Lord, but by the love that we show. I forget it word by word, but, roughly paraphrasing. Alright, but the love that we show to one another, alright, in this truth, alright, there's a difference in really in GMS. It's a big difference. Okay, you don't really hear, or you don't hear about how GMS is not a charitable camp. Our brothers is not charitable. They show love to one another. Alright, and if you did hear that, them niggas probably got kicked out for doing some great shit. Alright, to show you how important charity and love is. Alright, because ultimately love is just action. Alright, loving is an action. Alright, so say love never faileth. Alright, and you gotta love your brother. Alright, it's more than just giving money. It could be a phone call, it could be a text. Alright, checking up on the brother. Alright, that's love. Sacrificing. Alright, that's love. Inconveniencing alright yourself for another brother. It's not really an inconvenience. I guess you showing charity. But put in the mindset whereas you brother call you this, we use this example all the time. A brother call you, midnight or whatever. Alright, you need some help with something, you come and help him out. Or you get off of work and he call you, he tired of shit, and you still go and do it. Alright, that's sacrifice. You had something to do planned already, but the brother needs you, and you go slide on him, see what he needs. Alright, that's love. Alright, and it's gonna be known in these last times. Alright, the love that we have for one another, there's gonna be a difference. Okay. Charity is very important. It talks about that in Corinthians, how you can know all the precepts, the prophecies, etc. But if you're not charitable, then all that doesn't matter. All right, because we already our righteousness is already counted. As filthy rags, and knowing everything don't mean shit. A wicked nigga, can know everything. Look at Esau, wicked ass. He know everything, and he wicked as fuck. All right, so knowing the prophecies and the breakdowns. It's important, but that charity is, is what conquers, all. All right, because you gotta look at that next brother like he's Yahweh Shai. All right, like that parable, Yahweh Shai said, naked did you clothe him? All right, hungry did you feed him? In prison did you visit him? All right, showing your actions towards your brother. You have to look at that brother like he's Yahweh Shai, because this is a body. All right, a body. Yahweh Shai. Alright, don't be no respecter of persons ass nigga just because this brother is not this rank, etc. That don't matter. Alright, you treat everybody with the same amount, of respect. Alright, like how you would do, the next man or a man that's in a high position. Alright, that's that Edomite, corporate shit. Alright. You treat the regular coworkers like shit, but when the boss come around, you all willing to pick up the next shift and etc. Nah, man. We don't do that over here. Alright, speaking to myself, you know, first and foremost. Alright, you know, charitable is a daily thing. Alright, but that I want this, you know, quick lesson was edifying. I don't want to give our praises to Yahweh Bashim and Al-Shai Bashim Chakwadash, and double honors to the apostles and elders, great millstone, and shalom to the Akim teaching his word throughout the four corners. In true sincerity, Yakim was out here, shalom.